All of time and space. Everywhere and anywhere, every star that ever was. Where do you want to start?
And welcome back to All of Time and Space. I'm here with Mark in our favourite watering hole, the Obverse book. Mark, why are we here?
Well, the TARDIS is in for a service, so we got them to drop us off here, and figured we'd have a few pints while we're waiting for the MOT to come back.
Pints? I thought you said halves. Sorry, I've only got you a half.
Oh, how disappointing.
If you drink that, and then I'll go back and get you another one.
Yeah. What did you get?
I got you a pint of thirsty ferret.
A pint.
A half. Sorry, a half of thirsty ferret.
Oh, okay. But I wanted Kestrel.
Okay, so apart from it being the wrong drink and the wrong size.
Everything else is fine. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'll give it a try.
Go with it.
Well,
it's supposed to be a very nice
Let's
drink.
give it a.
Yeah. It's got real fox in it, apparently.
It's gamey.
Gamey. Dear. Gamey McCrimmon.
The Phantom Paper.
Oh, don't start that again.
No.
Right.
I don't think we're going to have any fans in Scotland anymore now.
No, not after your
No,
racist
I'm so sorry. Do apologise.
Okay, well, look, I'll go back and get better drinks in a moment, but we really should get the show started because people probably want to hear us reviewing season 4 of Doctor Who rather than reviewing this rather awful beer.
Yes, so do we want to hazard a guess as what came bottom of the pile? What was our least favourite episode?
From season 4 of Doctor Who, we have a choice therefore of The Smugglers, The 10th Planet, Power of the Daleks, The Highlanders, The Underwater Menace, The Moonbase, The Macrotara, The Faceless Ones, or The Evil of the Daleks. Which one came last? I can only base my guesses on my personal opinion of where they came, so I'm gonna go with is it The Smugglers? Didn't think it would be.
No, it's The Faceless Ones.
Good Lord. Okay.
Yes. So you gave it 5.
Yep.
Our guest, Philip Edney, from the Sirens of Audio, gave it 6.5. And I gave it 6, so that came out as 5.8 as an average.
That feels quite low.
Yeah.
And thinking back about that story, I can see why.
It's, it's a fairly workaday story, isn't it? It's not that exciting. Most of it is set on modern-day Earth in a fairly dull airport.
Which was not necessarily brilliantly realised, let's be honest.
The aliens are a bit dull.
Bit dull, bit nondescript, bit samey. Was it that they'd lost their faces in some sort of space accident or something?
Oh, God, I can't even remember now.
So all I can remember is Pauline Collins was in it.
Yeah. And poor Polly and Ben got
sidelined
horrifically...
very... Yeah.
Not quite dodoed, but not far off.
I'd say it was a half dodo.
Yeah, a doe.
Yeah, a doe. A doe. And without any further ado. No. But there must be lots of good things to say about the story. And we should try.
Polly Collins was good.
Yep, she was brilliant. She should have been a companion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in this series, people that should have been companions. I think it sort of tapped into that kind of nascent package holiday kind of vibe and the young people being at risk. That was quite nice.
That was it was tapping into the zeitgeist.
It did. It tapped into the zeitgeist, but to a fairly poor level, which is why we rated it so badly. It was. It's a season for me of ups and downs and quite frustrating inconsistency. And this one really did feel like they were treading water in a scripty way. Who wrote the script? Who wrote the story?
Oh, I think this is Malcolm Hulke, isn't it?
Now that's very surprising because this
Yeah.
potentially would be the first Hulk.
Yeah.
So he didn't. Well, you know what? It gave him room to improve, and he certainly did.
Yeah, I
That's a
mean,
good thing.
he's not the first Doctor Who great writer to have started off with a fairly tough story.
This is very true.
Looking at you, the Crotons.
Come to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's where I went mentally. I was thinking Crotons. There's a spoiler for Series 5.
Yeah. Or 6 even.
Oh God, is it?
I don't know. I think so.
There's a lot of Doctor Who, isn't there?
There is.
Do you ever
too
think
much.
we should have started reviewing a shorter program?
Yeah.
If we'd done
maybe
Firefly.
we should have done Juliet Bravo or
Yeah.
Are You Being Served?
Right. Okay. Well, I think that probably means we've already exhausted what there is to say about the Faceless Ones.
Should we move on?
Let's move it along.
All right. So, next in the list.
Next in the list. Okay, I would. I would accept the Macroterror, but I'm going to bet the house on the Highlanders.
You're wrong. It's the Smugglers.
Oh.
JR's going to
dear.
be absolutely fuming.
Oh no.
So, JR Southall from the Strangers in Space podcast, he gave it 8 points. You gave it 4 points. Didn't you deduct a point because Mr. Griffiths did something to Gonch Gardner in
I might have
Grange Hill?
in Grange Hill, I might have done that.
And I gave it 7, so that ended up at 6.3.
I mean, so it scored higher than the Faceless Ones.
I mean, there is that, yeah.
Yeah. I would say of this one, going into it, you know, the expectations I had of A Tale About Smuggling were that kind of Faulkner-esque, hidden treasure, riddles, clues, chases,
Yeah.
blackmail, piracy,
Bit
boats.
Moonfleety.
Bit Moonfleety. Now, we did get a lot of those elements, but in a very, I would say, half-baked way, or at least very rudimentary. So while it promised a lot, it gave you a really thin experience. And I think my main problem with it was that it's just a really weak way to start a season. And I know this is before people at the BBC had even started thinking in terms of season openers and season finales and big starts and big I'm not saying that. Big conclusions. But it just it was
stories.
such a low key, meandering kind of meh story. So,
I mean, we've said this about lots of stories, but I think this would probably have fared a lot better in the scores if we could actually see the bloody thing.
I think that's very true. I think also if Hartnell had been in all of it, am I right in thinking he had an episode off?
He
was
he had
lying
to lie
down
down on a cart, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've
Yeah.
all done that.
Well, yeah.
You know, a few of
Standard
a few
Cornish
of-
holiday, isn't it, really?
Fit well. I mean, or Kent.
Yeah.
You know, standard day in Kent. In the 90s, probably different now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel. I don't know. I feel okay about this. I feel like there's a lot better stories out there. So if this one's coming quite low, I'm happy with that. How does it make you feel?
I feel a bit bad because I think this could be quite a big story if we could see all that expansive location stuff that got shot. But sadly, because we can't see any of it, we're having to go just purely on the story. And as you've said, it's not the strongest, which is a shame.
It's not the strongest, and I think the most dynamic character in it was Jamaica, who, as we've said, was
yeah.
Mr. Griffiths from Grange Hill, who is not an actor.
Oh, that was Cherub.
Oh, God. I get so confused. Cherub. Yes, Cherub. Now, the actor George Cooper comes across as a lovely man in the VAM on the DVD, but I've never seen him in a role where I didn't despise him.
Yeah, he does. It's a bit of typecasting. He does seem to play Gits, doesn't he, really?
Yeah. If he'd been a sort of avuncular kind of northern doctor, that could have been wonderful. But
Yeah.
didn't like him
Sadly
in this.
not.
So happy to give it the
But then he's
finger.
very good at playing Gits, so you know,
Yeah. Well, there's every need for it.
yeah. Everyone needs a Git.
Everyone needs a git. Yes. All right then. Let's move it along.
Okay, next one. I'll give you a little clue.
Give me a clue.
The next one, there are 2 stories on the same score, so it's a joint
Oh heavens, that's gonna
joint thing.
that's
yeah.
gonna throw a cat among the pigeons. All right. Highlanders and Evil of the Daleks.
You're half right. So, Evil of the Daleks.
Uh-huh.
You gave it 6. Our guest Adam from RetroTube gave it 7. And I gave it 6.5. And that made the average 6.5. And also tied is Power of the Daleks. So
Very
2 Dalek
interesting.
stories, both got 6.5. So Lindsay from the Trek This Out podcast gave it 7 points. You gave it 4.
Mm-hmm.
Simon from Strangers in Space gave it 7. And I gave it 8. But yeah, 6.5.
Wow. And it's sort of
That's a bit
my
of a
fault.
turn up.
So, I think if they could somehow have mashed these 2 stories together like a sort of sandwich, because I think the Evil of the Daleks had a better story, but no, hang on. What am I trying to say? No, because the Doctor, I didn't really warm to the Doctor in Power of the Daleks.
No, I remember
So
that.
if you'd put the warmer Doctor in the Power of the Daleks, it might have lifted that to be
He's still a bit
slightly
sketchy and
better.
evil, isn't he, really?
I mean, yeah.
He's having to lie to Jamie and...
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. So is it just Dalek fatigue, do you think, at this point?
I don't know, because I think my impression of the people that I encounter within fandom seem to hold those 2 stories very highly. And I scored Power pretty highly and Evil not so much, which surprised me because I'd grown to appreciate Evil a bit more, but I think between just having to watch it again for this and listening to you and Adam just completely tear it apart, I think it just convinced me that it was not all that.
Well, Evil, in terms of the story, was just a kind of, not shambolic, that would be untrue.
It's
and
a bit all over
unkind.
the place, isn't it?
But it is, let's go from this set piece to this location, and then we'll do 2 episodes here, and then we'll
Yeah.
go here. And it feels like it's just 7 episodes to round out the season, rather than a sort of finite story that the writer wanted to tell. I don't know. I mean...
I think
if
it's got a
you-
reputation as being quite an iconic story. You've got that juxtaposition of having the Daleks in Victorian England, which is quite a cool idea. And then the whole stuff on Skaro with the very impressive Dalek Emperor.
Yep. I mean, certainly the 2 episodes on Skaro were quite lovely. I just think there are too many handbrake turns. The story going from Gatwick Airport
Yeah.
to the shop to we're suddenly back in the Victorian era for no readily apparent
Yeah.
reason, and then we kill a lot of time there, and the story's doing what it does there, and then we go on to Skara. I don't really know what I'm complaining about. I mean, it's more exciting than a story set in a small room with, no peril at all. But it just, for me, didn't feel like a cohesive story so much as a sort of desperate race to the finish line, I suppose. Power of the Daleks. I mean, the story was fine.
Yeah.
As far as it went. It was. The companions were fine. The other performances were fine. I think
some great guest cast in there.
Yeah, I think my problem was just the fact that
I think if you said it went on a bit too long.
it was quite long-winded, and Trout
Hey, welcome to
really
1960s
found
Doctor
his
Who. It's not going to
Yeah.
get that much better in the 70s, if I'm honest. But yeah.
feet. Well, at least it gets cancelled in the 80s.
Well,
so
yeah, we've got that to look
there's
forward
that.
to. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so of the two, you'd say that Evil was better. Than
I don't
Power.
know. I think I like Power just because you've got the novelty of that first episode with the regeneration, and it's it's exciting. It's the first time it's happened, and you've got the Daleks being a lot more cunning than we've seen. I think Master Plan was a sort of high watermark for them. The chase was very much the sort of, well, it was play for laughs, wasn't it? It was just a comedy runaround. Whereas in this, they are malevolent,
Nathan
evil
would
bastards.
disagree with you there. I think in the chase it was a very serious, sustained menace. I think the main problem with Power of the Daleks is that it shamelessly ripped off Mark Gatiss' Victory of the Daleks.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah,
There was a lot of stuff that I'd already seen.
yeah.
And
Even copying the catchphrase as well. That was just.
yeah, I don't know. They're classics, obviously. The final end of the Daleks on Skaro, remarkable.
I mean, either story you'd love to see come back just to really see what they're like.
Yeah, but yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed. I'm sorry. Sue me. Don't write in. Write into a different podcast. Where should we send them? Write into Who Can Convince You.
Well, they've stopped talking about Doctor Who now.
Well, maybe we
the
should.
experience of being on our show was the final straw.
Have
They
we
just
broken them?
decided
Oh,
we're not going to talk about Doctor Who. They're probably going to talk about it a little bit, maybe when it comes.
I'm sure
on,
they will.
but
I'm sure
yeah.
they'll do a
I think they
review
kind of feel like they've said all they can about it, so they're spreading their wings and they're doing different things.
I like the way that they're sensible enough to admit that they've
Well,
reached
yeah,
their limit.
yeah,
but,
we just
but
keep-
we're going to keep going.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Soldiering on
We're in it.
into infinity. So, do you have any final thoughts on the evil of and the power of the Daleks?
I think they're just two very iconic stories in the history of the show. The 60s Dalek stories, I think, are amongst the best, featuring the Daleks. There's not too many that can really top them.
I think that's fair enough. How are you getting on with your half?
I beg your pardon?
Your beer there, is it?
Oh,
Is it adequate?
yeah, it's, yeah.
It's sort of
Yeah,
green.
it's-
The
yeah.
foams are sort of a green. Oh, I wouldn't drink that. Why don't? Well, actually, no. If I got those, it must be your round. So I'll have a pint of.
Blue Nun, wasn't it?
I'll have a pint of Numpty's Disregard.
Okay.
And when you come back, we'll talk about the next story.
Lovely. Right then, what's... I don't know.
Hello.
So, what do you reckon's come up next then?
Next, right. So what we're left with is a run of absolute belters. I am, apart from the Highlanders, I want to say it's the Highlanders, but it could be the Macra Tower.
I mean, I'm going to have to press you for an answer.
Well, I'll go Macra.
It's the Highlanders.
Oh,
Fiddlesticks.
Piddle trousers.
Yes.
Well, that's fine. So what were the
Score
scores?
wise, Harry and Luke from Who Can Convince You came on. Harry gave it 6.5. Luke gave it 7. You gave it 6, and I gave it 8. So that came out at 6.8. So just sneaked in ahead of those two Dalek stories.
I mean, you've got to say it did really well.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the story, really, isn't it? Because that's really all you got to go on this particular one, because there's hardly any moving images, so you're going purely on those telesnaps and the story. So it's a story that kind of carries you along.
This was the one. Was this the one with? Was it Hannah Gordon as a serving
Yes,
wench?
yeah.
I know why this story did well. She's lovely.
Well, yeah.
That I think probably affected everyone's vote. I'm trying to think of the story, and apart from like a couple, the bit where they're trapped in the sort of the little, thing they fall into. What do you call that?
Pit.
Pit. Thank you. I can remember that. I can remember some rather exciting stuff on a boat.
So it gets set up as the Battle of Culloden, doesn't it, with the Jacobites and the Redcoats. So you think that's going to be the focus, and then it goes kind of left field with this shady English person who is in a position of power, and instead of hanging the Scots as he's meant to, he's making a nice little wedge on the side by selling them to go and work on the plantations. So the Doctor gets involved, and it all goes a bit crazy from there.
Yeah, which is
I like it. It's a bit of a runaround.
It's a good story. It is a runaround. It's nice to see something different. As I think Ben from Indiana messaged in to tell us, it was interesting to see a story where the kind of British ruling classes were the de facto villains of the piece.
We love Ben.
We do love Ben. We love Ben and we love Andy. They should get together and form a sort of Doctor Who sketch supergroup.
They're both musicians, so I'm sure they could manage it.
And a supergroup. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you heard it here first, guys.
Maybe they could form a group with Harry and Luke.
Ooh. Can we sort of get royalties for that? Can we?
No.
If we're putting them together, we can be like the Svengali that formed the monkeys.
Oh.
We can get all their money.
Are you putting yourself forward as a Colonel Tom Parker?
Absolutely, I am. So, yeah, I think the Highlanders punched above its weight, really, with those kind of scores. Because in a series with this much brilliance and joy in it, the Highlanders, again, for me, I was still waiting for Troughton to really turn up as the Doctor. There are more fun adventures around this story, so it's just a kind of, it's another historical.
There are some fun moments. I mean, he does the whole shtick of Dr. Von Ver.
Von Ver?
And then he does the thing of locking up the guy in the cupboard and banging the other guy's head on the desk. And
That was, gets a bit handy.
Yes.
So yeah, there were some nice moments, but I think it's a fairly slow moving, largely unavailable story. Certainly, I had to watch it in quite interesting CGI, so that didn't help.
Well, I listened to the audio and I found that worked best for me, with a bit of linking narration. But it's whatever works for you. I know when we did our Hartnell retrospective, Victoria from Gallifrey's Most Wanted, she has found that the best way for her to experience those missing stories is to read the Target novel. She just finds that a much better way of experiencing them.
Yeah, I mean, it can give you a slightly biased opinion because
possibly.
The production values in your own head are always going to be better.
Yeah, and they sometimes meander a bit from the original, but that's fine.
They deviate
A little bit.
They're a little little cul-de-sacs and lacunas of difference.
Unless you've got anything else to say about the Highlanders, I think we should go on to your guest for what came in 4th place.
So, have we, with the stories that we've already covered, have we basically dismissed all the ones that aren't available, and what remains are all complete stories, I want to say?
Well, I mean, you may say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Ish. And I think that's an interesting distinction, if that's true. So what came 4th? Okay, we got the Underwater Menace, we got the Moon Base, we've got the 10th Planet.
Basically, every story you just listed there has episodes missing, so none of them are complete.
That's a very good point. Yeah. But I feel like they're more available than some of the others.
Maybe they're a bit more
Probably
accessible.
we watched the animations, didn't
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're
10th
just a bit more accessible.
we? Underwater Menace, Moon Base I've got to hope it's Macra next.
It's the Underwater Menace.
Oh, bullshit. I will not have that. I will not have that.
Well, this is your fault.
It's not
It
my
would have been a
fault.
lot lower down if not for some very wonky marking.
I dispute that, and I demand
Well,
to see your
okay,
working.
well, let's go into it. Let's drill
Let's do
down
that.
into the
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave it 6.
Right.
Deb Green, our guest, gave it 6. And you gave it 10.
I did give it 10.
You did. Why?
It deserves
Explain. Explain
It's
yourself.
it's the most fun. I can do it in 3 letters. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's
Yeah.
nonsense. It's
Right, I'm going to remember this
disposable-
conversation because if you slag off any of the stories in season 17 when we get round to it in about 50 years' time, I will go absolutely tonto.
Right. Well, based on the likelihood of you being able to remember what your own name is by the time we get round to talking about season 17, I'm happy
Well,
to
yeah.
take that.
All right,
It's
fair
just pure fun. You've got Troughton in sunglasses and a silly hat in a
Yep.
marketplace playing the bongos. I mean, that has got to be worth 10 out of 10, if
Yeah.
nothing else. It reminded me of Voyage to the Bottom of the Ocean, or whatever the hell it was called,
Yeah.
the old RKO serial from the 40s. It's our first visit to Atlantis. It's giving... you have to excuse me, a little cough there. It's
I thought
giving
you were just getting a
children
bit
what
emotional.
they want. I am actually getting emotional.
Yeah.
It's diverting. It's kind of educational it's Atlantis, so you don't need to know about this once you've
Yeah,
left
yeah.
primary school. But it's just really straightforward fun. I think it's kid friendly, so unlike something like the Highlanders, I think this would engage the children who
Yeah.
ostensibly the show is made for. And
It's got an absolutely bonkers villain as well, and who doesn't love a bonkers villain?
He was rather over the top, I felt.
Just a tad.
Just
a tad. But I like that. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think you need to be. That's the formula often in these things when you've got a hero who's so sort of, likely to win as the Doctor or James Bond. You need a madman in opposition to them to kind of raise the stakes.
Yeah.
And I think Professor Zaroff was a delight. What's wrong with you marking it a measly 6?
It's a fun story, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's the best story of this season.
I would.
Well, that's why you gave it 10.
That is, yes.
I tend to be a bit less free and easy with my 10s,
Hey, come on.
whereas you like to chuck them around left, right and centre.
That is unfair. I've given Power and Evil of the Daleks the lowest scores ever given to those stories in the whole of fandom.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
I can blow hot, I can blow cold.
I've heard that.
Hey,
You like The Mandalorian?
I don't think I've seen them. Oh no, he turned up for a bit in Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen him.
I can take you in hot, or I can take you in cold.
That's a very good impression.
Thank you.
I didn't realise the Mandalorian was played by.
No, I was doing Baby Yoda there.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Yes, good, good, because that was a.
Any more to say about Underwater?
I mean, I
Menace,
could talk
or-
about the Underwater Menace all
I'm
day.
sure you could. I'm sure you could.
It's it's just joyous, and I don't understand why anybody wouldn't give this 10 out of 10.
Well, if you ever meet up with Ben in Indiana, I think he's got a slightly different appreciation for that story.
Well, all right.
Yeah, he was somewhat scathing.
I mean,
What can you do?
there's in fandom. What I'm discovering is it's a very broad church,
All right, yeah.
and there's a lot of room for differences of opinion.
Is there?
Some people like some stories, other people like some stories.
Right,
Some
yeah.
people, like for example David Kitchen, are all about the Hartnell era.
Yeah.
Some people are all about the Jodie Whittaker era.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like the books. Some people listen to Big Finish. Some people listen to those. So, there's room for dissent. There's
There
room
is,
for a difference of
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
But if you don't like the Underwater Menace, you're a prick.
Well, there you go. So thanks to all those listeners who now are no longer going to bother listening again. So sorry.
I was joking. You're not a prick.
Yeah, no.
Nobody.
Why have you got your
listens.
fingers crossed on there? Anyway.
That's not. I've got that disease.
Oh, okay. Okay, then moving on. We are now looking for the story that came in third.
It's very difficult now because there's two absolute bangers
Yeah.
and the Macra Terror.
Oh, that's a bit
So
harsh.
I'm not being harsh. I'm just saying that the other two are even better than the Macra Terror. So if, gun to my head, I had to guess, I'm saying the Macra Terror came third.
It is the Macra Terror.
Yes.
So, we had the wonderful Nathan Bottomley from Flight Through Entirety.
I love Nathan Bottom.
I love Nathan Bottomley.
I could listen to him all day.
So could I. So erudite.
But I get told off walking around the house with my earphones in the whole time.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to stop listening to Nathan Bottomley and just
Yeah.
do some work or something.
Yeah.
Feed the
Bit
dog.
awkward when you're in the shower. But,
If you fold your ears over like so,
okay, yeah.
you can create a sort of shield.
Nice.
Um,
Anywho, Nathan gave Macra Terror 9 out of 10.
right.
You gave it 7 out of 10.
Okay.
And I gave it 8 out of 10. So that came out as an average of 8.
Okay. Why did you give that story such a high score?
Well, to be honest, before I watched it again for the podcast, I wasn't expecting my score to be particularly high. I seem to remember when I listened to the audio, I found it a bit irritating. So whether the animation just turned that round, or possibly Nathan being very persuasive, and he's a very intelligent man. He can present a very good argument for lots of things, and whether that just swayed me to increase my vote a bit more.
I mean, I'm trying to. So it would be what, maybe a month or two back that we actually watched this. It's a bit of inside baseball there, listeners. We don't record one show every month necessarily. And I'm struggling to remember too much about it. I think there was some remarkably dressed song and dance girls.
Yeah, we had some majorettes in there, didn't we?
There was a sort of a little jingle whenever the people were
Yeah, I think that got
spoken
on my nerves when I listened to the audio.
to. But it's a nice bit of sort of, sci-fi camp kind of stuff. I mean, I remember this one as also being very good fun. But I don't remember thinking that this was one of the best stories of the season. And
I think the animation
mark it.
does make the Macra seem far more impressive than they possibly were on the original broadcast.
That's true. So if we'd had the episodes to watch, we could have marked this significantly lower.
Yeah, so this is the inverse of the Smugglers, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah. This was the one where Jamie did the Highland fling, I believe.
Yes, and Ben got his mind controlled by the... he got a serious case of the crabs, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, it's a story that lives or dies on the you know, how the crabs are manufactured and realised is the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for. The realisation of the crabs. And in the animation, they were excellent, but we know that on screen in the 60s, they would have been rubbish.
Slightly more leaden, I'm
Slightly
guessing.
less mobile.
Yeah.
Bit of black tinsel.
Bit more
maybe.
rubbery.
Yeah, some balsa wood.
Yeah.
MDF. They would have been a disaster. So I think I fundamentally, Mark, I tell you, I think it's a travesty that this one's come in as high as it did.
You're just bitter because it beat the Underwater Menace.
I am, yes. I also think I probably just marked it up because Nathan was talking to me. And
Yeah.
I wasn't really
You were just
listening,
staring into his eyes. And, yeah.
Just So, yeah. But fair enough. If the Macroterrors come third, then third it is.
So be it, yeah. So, top two.
So,
2 stories left.
and it's definitely not the Underwater Menace in some weird voted for it
No,
twice.
no.
So it's between Ye Olde 10th Planet or Ye Moonbase.
Yes.
What do those two stories have in common, Mark?
They both feature Patrick Troughton.
What else do they have in common?
They both feature Ben and Polly.
What else do they have in common?
They are both set in a remote base.
I'm going to keep going. What else do they have in common?
The base in both of them is manned by an international team of experts.
Yeah, less niche than that. They're both Cyberman stories.
Oh, yeah.
And they're both the first 2 Cyberman stories.
Correct. Yeah.
So whichever of them has come second and whichever of them has come first, we've voted a Cyberman story the best story of season 4. That's never going to happen again, is it?
I wouldn't be so sure.
Are you thinking season 18?
No, I'm thinking season 12.
Interesting. We're going to probably have a disagreement there.
So, what's your guess for second place then?
I reckon
Alternatively,
it's gotta be,
which one do you think won it?
Yeah, I think second place has got to be the Moonbase.
You're right, annoyingly. So, for the Moonbase, our guest for that episode was John Rivers. And John gave it 8 points. I gave it 9 points. And you gave it 8 points. So we ended up with 8.3.
That's very good.
It's a strong story.
It is a very strong story, and I remember at the time saying how I'd come to that story through the Target book.
Yeah,
and
me too.
As you were saying, scant moments ago, sometimes the Target book is the best way to appreciate the story, and it was an absolute spellbinder of a story because it didn't really deviate from what was on screen. What was on screen felt like an instant. I was going to say felt like an instant classic. It's not an instant classic. It's 60 years old. Give or take. It is a classic to me on first viewing because it's one of the books I read when I was knee-high to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's down to the nostalgia of having that Target book.
Yeah. So what were your favourite elements of the story as it was filmed?
I just think as an overall package, it's a really good story. Polly, although she gets told to go and make the coffee, which is, not very progressive.
We don't like that sort of thing, do we?
Yeah, she does get to actually solve the problem. So
she gets to occupy both ends of the sort of spectrum.
Yeah.
Sexism
There is that.
And genius.
Yeah. Jamie doesn't get an awful lot to do because he's
But this was
not really
his
meant to be in it.
second story.
Yeah, they
so
didn't know he was going to be in it when they wrote it, so they had to kind of shoehorn him in a bit.
Oh God! So he had that whole 30-week
Phantom
stretch
Piper,
where he was
yeah,
lying
yeah.
in bed wanging on about the Phantom Piper. I found that rather tiresome.
I'm so glad you said wanging.
I did say wanging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't imagine the Phantom Piper's worth any other. I'm gonna leave that sentence
Yes,
there and
let's
abandon it
not go there.
like
Yeah.
a stolen Audi in a hedge. I'm just gonna run the other way.
Yeah.
So Ben, I can't remember a single thing about him in this one. I remember the spacesuits. I remember it.
Yeah, it's got it all, isn't it? You've got the
looked
spacewalk. You've got. I mean, they make it to the moon before the astronauts in real life.
and it was a really good set in the inside the moon base.
We've got still
titular moon
images,
base.
and
I think they did a very good job making a fairly plausible set for that. So on almost every level, I'd say it's genius. I think we may have commented at the time that the Cyberman's plan was somewhat convoluted.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's only going to get worse as we move into the 70s with a certain recurring villain. We won't touch on that just yet.
I'm not even gonna touch that one, listeners.
Yeah.
I think I know what he's getting at, and I won't have it. I think. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. The Cybermen, famously the strength of 10 men. They can walk into the moon base, kill everyone without sustaining an injury.
Yeah.
So what do? They put rat poison in the sugar.
Yeah. Why not put it in the coffee, and then you're going to get everyone rather than just those who have sugar?
That's a good point, especially Benoit. He'd have been. I imagine he was the kind of biggest coffee drinker on the base.
You think so?
Well, he spent longest in the toilet, so cause and effect, mate. You know. It's a ridiculous implausibility of a story, but that doesn't detract from it being.
I think it's just got it all, hasn't it? You know,
realised
it's
story.
exciting.
Yeah.
You've got the Cybermen trying to invade the base. You've got. I don't know. It's just all the things I want from a 60s story. And they reuse that great piece of music again.
Space something?
Space Adventure.
Space Adventure, yes. Space Adventure. That's what they could have called the show. I think it's one of maybe the top 3 or the top 5 Target books from when I was a kid in terms of the story and the impact it had on you. So finally getting up to this point, was really lovely. And I think from here on in, I have more of a familiarity with what's coming and most of the stories.
It is starting to fall into a bit more of a pattern as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's settling down, although, as we've said, this season's still very up and down, and characterizations can come and go. But yeah, this was a real joy to watch.
Yeah.
So,
no
Mark,
arguments from me.
Let me ask you, what story do you think came in top?
I think, I could be wrong, I think it's the 10th Planet.
I've got the Underwater Menace written down.
Okay. Well, let's agree to disagree on that one. So our guest for the 10th Planet was Jim Cameron from the Mutoid podcast and the Crinoid podcast. And Jim gave it 8. I seem to remember him saying at the time he wasn't expecting to give it an 8, but he really enjoyed it this time round. I gave it a 9, and you gave it a 9, so that ended up on 8.6. So just snuck in there ahead of the moon base.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's not miles out in front, but
No.
so almost uniquely, because obviously there is the Smugglers as well. But this is a bit of an outlier because this features an actor called William Hartnell as the Doctor in his dramatic, thriller minute, Androzani-like powerhouse of a swan song.
Yes, not quite. I think a lot of my reason for giving it a 9 is just you got that emotional thing of having seen all of his stories and this is his final one, and it's just a momentous thing. And I think what you do get to see of him, he's really good in it, despite being quite poorly by this time. It's a shame he wasn't well enough to really feature more strongly. But I think it's a really iconic story.
See, I think it succeeds because Hartnell was ill. Because it's very much a thriller that just happens to feature the Doctor in a wooden chair in the corner in some episodes, not even in all of the episodes. And I think because he wasn't available, everyone else gets to really stretch themselves and their characters. And it was just a really solid thriller. I mean, it could have been a movie. It was just relentless. And there was, for me, thinking back, and obviously, you know, I don't remember it as well as I did when we'd only just watched it to talk about it on the programme. But I don't remember there being any padding. I don't remember there being a lot of fat that could have been trimmed. It was just a really lean, good science fiction thriller that just happened to sort of peripherally be a bit of a Doctor Who story. There were certain, I think we said, sort of logical flaws with it, like the science around another planet materialising in the sky, and that would have
But I think
played havoc.
Doctor Who's always been a bit wobbly on the science, hasn't it?
Do you know what? An 8-year-old isn't going to understand how tides work. An 8-year-old isn't going to understand that if you take the nuclear rods out of the reactor core and waggle them at the Cybermen, the reactor core will definitely go critical, because that is what happens when you take the rods out. I don't want to seem hung up on that point, and I know I brought it up at the time, but really the level of I feel like we're all just more.
Do you feel like the science was much better handled in the Underwater Menace, for example?
You're trying to trick me into saying something. I'm not gonna fool for your nonsense, Cochrane.
Yeah, I think the Cybermen were superb in this as well. Really creepy.
Was it their best ever performance or realisation?
I mean, they are a little bit wobbly around the edges, and you know, it's just about held together by sellotape. But yeah, it's an enduring image, isn't it? Again, going back to those Target books, having that 10th planet Target with the Chris Achilleos illustration on the front, it's there, it's burned onto my memory. So much so that they brought them back at the end of Capaldi's run, and
the Cybermen. They've been brought back quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, no, but I'm thinking more the original design. We're slightly updated for the
slightly tweaked
new series. Yeah,
but
it's quite a brave thing to do, because it could have really fallen flat, and people could have just looked at it and thought, "Oh, that's just ridiculous." But it really works. So it proves that there is something about those Cybermen that really works.
Yeah, because they're the original premise that these are people who've surrendered their humanity and their organs, and they are, you know, people with lots and lots of plastic bits.
Yeah, you're still able to see there's some sort of lingering elements of humanity there. They're not quite robots yet.
Vestigial traces of organic life. And as you say, they just became robots from their second appearance, which happened about 3 weeks after this one.
Yeah, it was a very quick turnaround.
What was it? There was like a 3-story gap, and they brought the Cybermen back.
Yeah, I think they commissioned the second story straight off the bat, literally as soon as they finished the original story.
So, and you know, as we said, it's a huge vote of confidence in their new monster they've invented. So why do they immediately, you know, change the design? As you say, I suppose.
Yeah,
to make
I guess there was a bit more money coming in. And
yeah, could be that. But 10th Planet was just an absolute barnstormer. It was strong enough to be a season opener, strong enough to be a season closer. They put it out second. Fair enough. Wow, well, there you go. There we are. That's series 4 done. What are your thoughts looking back on it all?
I think it's, as you said, it's probably settled down a bit more compared to watching season 3. Season 3 felt like it went on for a very long time, even though I enjoyed all of it.
It really did.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it.
Yeah. But this feels like it's just kind of flown by, really.
It does, doesn't it? And that's only going to sort of increase from here on in, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, by the time we get to McCoy, we can probably do his entire era in an afternoon.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It just leaves me wanting more. And I'm just really looking forward to season 5. The monster season.
So where we are now, are you fully invested in the new Doctor, Patrick Troughton? Is he the man?
To be fair, I mean, I really do love Troughton, and I've always had that kind of affection for his character. When we were kids, we had the 5 Faces of Doctor Who, and we had the Target novels. So he was kind of, although he wasn't a Doctor that we got to see an awful lot, because we'd had those little tantalising glimpses, he was just spellbinding, and there's just something about him that you just want to watch him. That said, I think I ended up really loving Hartnell a lot more than I thought I was going to. So watching all of his stuff from start to finish, it was quite sad to see him go. But I think it's reinvigorated again, and we've got a new, different Doctor, and I think in some ways it's slightly more interesting because he can go in different directions with it. That said, storytelling-wise, I think it's going to settle down into much more of a formula, definitely going forward from here.
Do you think season 5 in particular is going to feel quite formulaic?
Well, let's not jump the gun, but let's hope the stories do enough to differentiate between them.
Exactly.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Marvellous. So am I.
Well, that was great. But it's time now for some lovely recommendations.
Oh, lovely.
So, Ian, what would you like to recommend for our listeners?
Well, so I've got what we in bookselling used to call a 2-for-1 for you.
Oh.
So, and that's the wrong app. I've opened Instagram. That's no good. I'm looking for Overcast. There we go.
Okay.
So I listened to a new podcast, the Cardboard Cinema Club, presented by Adam Leslie. Who,
Oh,
of course,
yes, I've
was a
heard
guest,
of him. He's very
a
good.
guest on our show.
Yes.
And he's just got one of the most relaxing and soothing voices, coupled
He has,
with a
hasn't he?
great
He's-
erudite
He should be on the radio.
wit. Yeah, he really should be. Maybe he is. I don't know. I don't
maybe.
live there. So I listened to the review he did with Auds Violet of a film from 1974 called Celine and Julie Go Boating,
Oh.
which was directed by Jacques Rivette. I'm just going to...
It's not one I'm familiar with, I have to be honest.
So I was so intrigued by their review that I went out and ordered the Blu-ray of the film
Oh,
and watched the film yesterday, and it's about 3.25 hours of
Jeebus.
kind of French New Wave meets magical realism with...
I thought you were going to say Magic Roundabout for a minute.
Oh, if only. No, but there was a ghost story in there. There was kind of weird identity blurring kind of stuff going on. But irrespective of what happens in the film, the way the film is lit and shot and performed, it's just the most charming and beguiling film I've seen in maybe a year. So I really loved that film, Cecile and Julie Go Boating. And I really doff my cap. I doff my cap to the Cardboard Cinema Club podcast, which everyone should go and listen to immediately.
Are they still there, or have they gone now to listen to the podcast? You still there?
Hello? Anyone?
Anyone?
Hello? It's Mark's turn. Come back and listen to Mark's.
They've gone.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
Thanks.
Did you have a
Thank
good
you.
choice anyway?
Oh, I thought I had a pretty decent one, yeah.
What were you gonna recommend?
In my misspent youth, I did like books quite a lot, but my attention span is next to zero. So I literally can't sit down and read a book now. It's just too much. I'm too old. I'm too tired. Can't be done. But what I can enjoy is an audiobook or a radio play. And I think the daddy of all radio plays, which I'm going to recommend, and we've got the box set here, is, I don't know if you've heard of this. This is quite a niche one. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by someone called Douglas Adams.
Now I'm drawing a blank there, mate. You might need to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so he's done something quite neat. It's a science fiction story, but it's incredibly funny, and it covers all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It kind of goes into philosophy, and it's just really, really funny.
I'm sort of getting a vague. I think it's something I might have read when I was younger. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Is it the one that begins far out in the unfashionable edges of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 98.2 million miles lies a small unregarded blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so remarkably primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea.
Yeah, that's the one.
This planet has, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Many of the people on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time, even the ones with digital watches.
Yes, that's definitely the one. Yeah. By the way, listeners, I didn't prime Ian that we were going to be talking about this, so he has just remembered that.
It's,
We're just showing off now.
I mean, for people of our age and fighting weight, it's kind of the holy grail in some ways, isn't it? There was
Yeah.
the books, the radio, which obviously you're primarily talking about, but also the TV version. And in every medium, Adams would kind of tweak what he was doing, and the structure would bend but never break. And it was, because Douglas Adams obviously used to work with Graham Chapman before he moved into Doctor Who. So the humour has got a kind of Python link. So it connected with so many people in the UK, I think because of that comedy.
Yeah.
That even the kind of sci-fi people who didn't really like sci-fi would go along with this because it was very funny and very clever. There's a word for you. Very clever and so quotable.
Yeah.
You know, and before you even get to the characters, you've got the voice of the book narrating this epic odyssey through the universe.
We went to see, they did a stage, a tour of the original radio cast 10 years ago. And we went to go and see that, and it was fantastic. They were doing live Foley, and they would have a guest book, because obviously, sadly, the actor that played the book originally
Peter Jones
is no longer with us. And we had Rory McGrath for our book.
Good Lord.
But I do have, I don't know if they're still available, because they were releasing audio versions, digital versions, as they were doing the tour. And I've got one on my MP3 player, which has got Neil Gaiman as the voice of the book, which is rather fabulous.
But Rory McGrath, though. What a coup that was. I suppose he was still working 10 years ago, wasn't
Well, he probably was, yeah.
Because I think when they made the film and they had Stephen Fry, I always thought that was a very Route One bit of casting. I mean, he's got a far too distinctive voice, so you're kind of immediately taken out of it because you're thinking, oh, that's Stephen Fry.
Maybe they should have gone with Roger Allam.
That would have been wonderful. That's a brilliant suggestion. Did that just come to you? Or?
Yes.
Oh, that would have been amazing. I think the quality of the material is such that pretty much anyone could.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Pasquale would struggle. That would be unbearable. But and then so So the radio show, the original one had, oh God, I've gone blank. So you had Mark Wing-Davey as Zaphod. You had Jeffrey McGivern.
Yeah.
Latterly he's turning up a lot in Jonathan Creek, which I'm rewatching at the moment.
He's in Ghosts.
So he gets around a bit.
He does, yeah.
Which is great. Simon Jones as Arthur Dent.
Yes.
And for my money, the probably the most important, inspiring, and stunning performance was Stephen Moore as Marvin.
Yes, yeah.
That was, I mean, how remarkable was he?
Yeah. So if you've not experienced it, you should check it out. It's available everywhere now, but yeah, give it a listen or read it. My wife would argue that the book is the best version because of Douglas Adams' amazing way with words.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree.
No.
But I think any of the audios are equally brilliant. So that's a very strong recommend. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, he said in a very patronising way. Well done. So, Christ. Brilliant. Right. So, any other business?
No, well, apart from you getting the next round in.
Is it my turn? So, what did you want? Was it a half of the mild, or
I'll have a pint of Monk's Dong, please.
a pint
Yeah.
of Monk's? Okay, I'll get that. Do you want some crisps and peanuts as well? Oh, where's my wallet's gone? I must have left it in my other coat.
Oh. How did you get the other round? Did you steal it?
I put them on your tab. So.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll it's up to me to get the round in then. All right, well, we'll see you again next time when we start season 5.
Oh, that's going to be good.
It's going to be a monster season.
Oh, brilliant. That's my favourite REM album.
If you'd like to get in touch, you can email us at mailbagofrassilon@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter @TimeEndSpacePod, and you can also find us on Facebook. If you want to leave some audio feedback, there is a link in the show notes. You can use your phone or your computer and leave up to 60 seconds of feedback, or if you're listening via the Anchor website, you can click on the message button and leave your audio. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you to Momo Tempo for providing our theme music.